If you have ever sat in front of a computer or a notebook to try to write but somehow you just can't, I have been there. After I graduated from my writing program or my MFA program, I could not write for months. And it was like the thing that I went to school for somehow was erased from my brain after I got a degree in it. So I did what most writers do. I tried to write through it. It didn't work. I tried to switching projects so I can find something more interesting to write about. It didn't work. I read craft books, switched my writing space, and even watched inspirational videos. Nothing worked. I convinced myself that maybe I just needed more time. But the more I waited, the more I just sat there not writing. And then I read this book called The War of Art by Steven Pressfield, and it changed everything for me. And it even convinced me that writer's block is not even real. Hi friends, my name is Mohammed and I'm a writer based in New York City with an MFA degree in creative writing, and this channel is all about helping writers build a consistent habit, improve their craft, and find inspiration to write their unique stories. And in this video, I want to talk about the book, The War of Art, how Steven Pressfield defines the writer's block, how to overcome it, and how to deal with the obstacles that comes after that period where you find yourself not writing for a very long time. Steven Pressfield's definition of writer's block is that actually he says is not real. It's just a mask for what he calls the enemy of creativity, resistance. And resistance is an invisible force that stands between us or that pulls us away from creating anything that feels bigger than ourselves. Be it writing, switching jobs, taking a new challenge, learning a new language, a skill, and even, he argues, even getting pregnant and running a nonprofit and doing a thing that you are very passionate about. And the greater the goal in your mind that you're trying to pursue, the greater the resistance that you will face to try to pull you away from it. And resistance can disguise itself or mask itself in various forms like procrastination, distraction, and all the other things that I will talk about later that stands between us and creating or writing. And for me, after I graduated from my writing program, the way it masked itself was not only procrastination. Some of it was procrastination, but most of it actually was self-doubt. I did not believe that I can actually write without someone telling me to write, without the expectations that other students had of me of submitting the work and workshop during the program that they will read and then give me feedback on. Once that expectation or that accountability went away from my life, I literally did not have the mechanism or the motivation or the fuel that asked me, I live in New York City, that asked me to write again. And so that it masked itself in a lot of self-doubt. I did not believe that I can do it again. So if you sit with yourself by journaling or even reflecting and ask, what is resistance disguising itself for you when it comes to writing? Is it procrastination? Is it a lack of belief in yourself and your project? Is it the fact that you think that this is something not worthy of pursuing because it's not going to give you the reward that you expect yourself to gain? Whatever the case might be, sit down and pin it down, because once you pin it down, then you're able to deal with it later. And this moved me to the second point on how to deal with resistance. And Steven Pressfield says there's a difference between being a professional and an amateur. The main difference between a professional and amateur is that the professional shows up every single day regardless how they feel. He treats his art or her art like a job. We show up to our day job, to our 9 to 5, regardless how we feel. But sometimes we wake up and we don't feel like going to work. We still go to work. Sometimes we wake up and we know we're gonna have a meeting that is going to be bad and is gonna put us in a certain mood that we do not like. We still show up to work. We know that we are working on a project that we might not even be a fan of or see a reward or benefit in. Still, we show up to work because we are professionals and we get paid for what we do. And to Steven Pressfield, that's what professional artists do. They show up to their art like it is a job, regardless how they feel. And he says something very, very interesting that I want to read to you. He says, the professional respects resistance. He knows if he caves in today, no matter how plausible the pretext, he will be twice as likely to cave in tomorrow. And I feel like resistance has that compound effect. The more that you don't write, and I definitely noticed this about myself after my writing program, the longer I waited for that inspiration to come for me to get back into the writing habit, the more or the easier it became for me to forget about the writing habit entirely. I literally stopped identifying myself as a writer because I hadn't wrote for so long. And it just became easier to skip writing days and to even have the time to write and have the mental space on the weekend or during long breaks. and I still didn't write because it did not, I no longer had that fuel, or I no longer wanted to show up because it was easier not to show up. For the amateur, he only shows up to his art. He only shows up to writing when he feels inspired, when he finds a fuel from an external measure, from like a lecture that he watches, or from someone that asks him to get back into writing because they have something worthy of telling. Only in that moment do they get back to writing, but it does not sustain itself for a long period of time because inspiration tends to go away, and then you are left with yourself. And the way to get back into writing and to become professionals is to ignore how we feel about it and start, even after stopping for years from our writing goals or dreams, is to start one day to write for 10 minutes and create a chain effect day after day of writing for 10 minutes for as long as you can. Even if you write for 10 minutes a day for a whole month or 2 months, it's better than nothing. You can increase that time later. You can play with, instead of writing for 10 minutes, writing specific amount of words. It does not matter how you craft it for yourself, whatever you think works for you better, as long as you start as small as possible, even less than what you expect yourself to achieve, so that you can start by maintaining or building the habit in the very beginning, and then worrying about expanding your stamina or extending your stamina later on. One thing that helped me to get out of the writing block that I was facing, or that resistance that was holding me back from writing for a very long time, was I created this group with my writer friends from my MFA program, and we called it a midday writing group, where we met on Zoom every day for 40 minutes. And all we did was log into one link, we said hi, no small talk or anything, and we just wrote. And I did that for a while, and then we just stopped. But then the habit for me, it maintained. Like, I still wrote even when we did not write on Zoom, but I wrote in the same time because my brain at that point was already programmed to write during the midday after my lunch, because that's what I expect myself to do, regardless how I felt. And the second phase of the midday writing group that we started again because we wanted to write together again, I wrote a short story that right now I'm submitting for publication in 2 weeks. Obviously, I did not start submitting it after those 2 weeks. I worked on draft. After draft, I think I'm in my like 6th or 7th draft, and now I'm starting to feel confident that I need to submit it to a publication. But the point is, it took me 2 weeks to write a story, while in the past it would take me a lot longer. And some stories get written faster than others, but the point of the matter is, if I had not expected myself to show up every day and write, I would not have wrote that short story in that short amount of time, because I would just wait for an inspiration to hit, and it was gonna come maybe for 2-3 days or for a day and then go away, and then I would never have finished that short story. The third point that Steven Pressfield talks about is the indicator that you are in the right direction. He thinks that the more self-doubt you have, or the more fear that you have about the projects that you are completing, writing, drawing, arting, is the more resistance that you will face, and the more convinced you should be that you are in the right path. And this tends to show up once you write about something that excites you in the beginning, and then after a while it just starts feeling like, oh, maybe this is something bigger than my skills can achieve, or something that maybe would not be received right by my audience, or by the audience that I think about. And I faced this when after I graduated, I started writing a children's book. I did not write children's books. This is not what I was trained in, but I went to Yemen, where I'm from, and I found inspiration for a children's story that I wanted to tell. So when I came back from that trip, I started writing a children's story. I wrote a draft, I showed it to my friends, I edited it and wrote a few drafts, till I got to the point where I thought I can actually publish this. Even a writer friend who is a father to 2 kids told me I would give my kids, or I would buy this book for my kids because it's a valuable story. And I sat with that children's story for a whole year. It's sitting on my drive, and I didn't do anything about it because I was full of self-doubt that it would not be published, no one will actually read it, and it wasn't something worthy of even attempting to publish. And recently I just decided I just need to start sending it regardless of what rejections I received. So 2 weeks ago, out of nowhere, I woke up one day and I decided I was going to start sending it out regardless of the feedback or the rejections I will receive. Started sending it everywhere. I knew where to send that, and didn't require an agent because I did not have an agent, and didn't even hear anything about them. And just last week, I received a soft yes from one of the publishing houses telling me this has potential, give us a second draft, and we will talk about the next steps, which is a very, very different direction than I thought than before I started sending it out. So if you are in self-doubt, know that you are on the right track. Fourth point that he talks about is do the work and detach yourself from the outcome. As writers, all we can do is write good stories. That's all we are responsible for. That's all we actually can do. Some of us get published because we have the connections. Some people get published because they already have the skill or the talent or the story that they have been thinking about for the last 10 years. Some people get published because they got lucky. No one knows how it actually works, and we cannot control the outcome of anything in our life. And he has a quote where he says the most important thing about art is to do the art. All you can do is show up every day and try. Nothing else. You can't control anything else but the writing and making it as beautiful and as clear as possible. And then you send it out, and if people want to publish it, then you've gotten lucky. If they don't, then it is their loss, and at the end you still have the story that you wrote. And lastly, Pressfield emphasizes that creativity or art is a battlefield, and you are going to face it every single day. There is no day where you are not gonna battle yourself to sit down and do that boring thing, the hard thing that you have set yourself to pursue. No one can claim that writing is easy. No one can claim that editing is easy. No one can claim that creating worlds of make-believe is easy. But our responsibility as writers is to get those stories right, and all we can do is sit down every day. But if you treat it as a battlefield, if you treat it as a battle within yourself, then every day you sit down and you win time and time again, that battle will become easier, because now you are building the muscle to reject the resistance in whatever phase it comes at you with. You are able to reject it, and you are able to commit to the pursuit that you have chosen for yourself. That's it for this video, and if you have enjoyed it, then you will enjoy what I talk about in my newsletter, the link down below. I talk about writing, the books that I'm reading, and stuff that I'm reading online, and my journey in general. You can follow it by signing up. And if you have watched this far, then you will likely want to watch my video on the system or the habit or how to make writing your priority in 2025 in this video right here. In the meantime, thank you for watching and keep writing.